countries. Let's start with Saudi Arabia. An aging monarch, we have a crown prince, but he's in his 70s. What about that country?
I think Saudi Arabia presents the challenge to President Obama over the last 18 months. It's a very difficult one. How do we balance our hope for Jefferson's empire of liberty, that the Arab world might have some freedom, some route towards democracy, balance that interest against our more pragmatic interests? Yeah. What do the Saudis give us? Obviously, the energy lifeline is not so much to us. We're not dependent on Saudi oil. It's the Europeans, the South Koreans, and the Japanese, and the Indians. Secondly, the Saudis and the other Gulf states and Mubarak were very important in helping us contain and block Iran and Iran's ambitions in the Gulf. And third, these conservative Gulf states and the other moderate Arab countries, the authoritarian countries like Egypt under Mubarak, helped us to thwart Al-Qaeda. Those are very important interests. It would be a mistake, I think, if we said that's the choice throughout the Arab world. There are 22 Arab states, each of them traveling at a different speed on different tracks towards some future, hopefully, of reform. And what the president has essentially done, and you can see this 18 ounce, he threw our support to Jefferson's empire of liberty, or to the Martin Luther King tradition, in Egypt, in Libya, in Tunisia. He did not do that in Saudi Arabia, in Yemen, and
Bahrain.
And Bahrain. Why didn't he do it in Bahrain? Because the Saudis made a point of saying, this is our backyard, we need to have stability in Bahrain. The Saudis and the other Gulf states saw an Iranian threat through the Shia population in Bahrain, however right or wrong they were about that. I think the president has, largely in a very skillful way, tried to have 22 different policies. And he's been affirming of freedom in some places, he's been more conservative in others, and frankly, it seems to me that's probably the right mix for us.
Yeah. I agree.
But in the region, people see that simply, put quite simply, as a double standard.
I understand, but I think that that's a simple Twitter way of approaching our Middle East policy.
Right.
And I think Nick has articulated it quite well. I also think that if you look, the Crown Prince of the UAE just met with President Obama, and if you look at the White House statement that came out, it reflects the deep relationship that we have with the Emiratis, and on a whole range of issues. We have to have a nuanced policy. There is not one approach for each and every country, and if you go down that path, you will pay a price. And I think the President has taken the right approach. And I frankly, respectfully disagree with David on the issue of that we may go and argue and slip into the path of stability at all costs, and we are not going to play a role. I happen to believe, if you listened this morning to David Coady, who the CEO of Honeywell, who just received the CSR award, corporations, and our corporations in particular, are continuing to play extraordinary leadership roles. They get the value of the business development relationship with corporate social responsibility, and I think that they can lead and bring some of the other players to the table, and maybe in this case, they are some of our Gulf friends who have more financial resources. We may have more of a background, but that's what when I articulate bringing stakeholders to the table, I do agree we're not going to be the ones as we historically were in the 90s when we all worked together. You know, being in the leadership role, but I will not subscribe that we do not have a role to play, because we do and are playing a role in catalyzing positive change on the ground.
And certainly something that is beneficial for both sides. And you have a private-public partnership.
At Aspen, we are doing a public-private partnership ranging from Morocco to Pakistan and Indonesia. We have 10 countries and local chapters in each of these countries, and we are yielding results, and it takes time.
But listen, let me say two things about this. First of all, with all due respect, corporate social responsibility is a scam, okay? The average corporation spends 0.01% of their revenues on corporate social responsibility, and where they do it to enhance outcomes pertaining to their bottom line, because it's their legal responsibility to do that. They are legally obligated not to get too deeply involved in issues that don't associate with their bottom line. Secondly, as far as the United States' role in the region is concerned, the United States will always have an oversized role because we have an oversized economy and an oversized military, and we will try to be active here. But I think the nuance in America's policy in the Middle East and the way it is played out and where we have intervened and where we have not intervened and how we have avoided the situations that were thorny diplomatically or thorny militarily suggests precisely how limited the United States' role is at the moment. And I cannot imagine a circumstance going forward where the United States' influence in this part of the world is actually going to increase. I think it is going to decrease because it is in our national interest for it to decrease, and because unlike any other moment in our history as a country or in the past 50 or 60 years, we will actually have the opportunity to be less interested and involved in the Middle East, because we, with Canada, in the year 2020, according to a recent Citibank report, will be producing 20 million barrels of oil a day and using 17 million barrels of oil a day. The OPEC report that came out yesterday said we would be energy independent by 2035. What that means is that the main thing that drew us into this region is not going to keep us in this region, and we have to be realistic about that.
So